Okay, hi Jake. I said I'd make a short video for you on the reverse dart thrower and forearm rotation blend and how it can be used for cross picking. So just brief revision, just so that I'm getting all the terminology explained. So this is supination with my palms facing the ceiling. This is pronation, where I face my palms to the floor. Okay, and then the reverse dart thrower movement is this direction with the wrist. Okay, so that is ulnar extension and radial flexion. Okay, and if we follow the clock face analogy again from my perspective here, 12, 6, 9, and 3, the extension is somewhere between 1 and 2 o'clock, and the flexion is somewhere between 7 and 8. Okay, so 8 to 2, 7 to 1, something in that range is your reverse dart thrower movement. Okay, so when you combine these movements, when you combine the action of the wrist with the action of the forearm, which is very natural because the muscles which describe the reverse dart thrower action, they have secondary function in forearm rotation. So this is a very natural and comfortable movement. When you combine these movements, instead of creating a linear path, you create an arc. So the arc becomes like that. I'll show it from multiple angles here. So that's my arc, okay? And that arc can create either a single escape movement, or it can create double escape movements. And because you're already doing this in your form that you said was comfortable, I suspect that you may be able to get this working for cross picking as well, or for kind of generic alternate picking. So in your comfortable form here, you had a very supinated setup, and you had your fingers quite extended and kept away from the guitar. Your contact point is this kind of karate chop section of the side of the hand here, and your action again is that you are on the downstroke, you are pronating and extending with ulnar deviation, and on the upstroke you are supinating and you are flexing with radial deviation. So that kind of movement. Okay, and the reason that your form is producing an upstroke escape is because the degree of supination makes the arc escape on the upstroke only. But that same movement pattern can be used to create a double escape, or even a downstroke escape on the other side. Okay, so how could we do that? Okay, well, I think the reason that you favor this extended finger thing here is probably because it stops your fingers grazing the strings here when you're doing your downstroke, and that would make sense if I was to place my hand here in kind of a naive fashion, and I was to do my downstrokes with your kind of degree of supination. That would result in me rubbing the first knuckles here of the distal interphalangeal joints across the strings, and obviously that's not going to be comfortable. So again, that basic movement pattern is supinated. You are pronating on the downstroke with ulnar extension, and you are supinating on the upstroke with radial flexion. Okay, and again, I think your fingers, you have them extended so that that's allowing you to get that degree of supination to make that upstroke escape extremely robust without rubbing your fingers. Okay, now the same movement pattern can be used to create a cross-picking movement, or an alternate picking movement, double escape movement, whatever we'd like to call it, just by changing our contact point a little bit. So instead of using the side of my palm here, this kind of karate chop contact point, this there's a little almost spherical bone here at the edge of your right at the corner of your palm there. It's called the pisiform bone, and if you can kind of palpate your own hand, you'll feel a kind of a round, almost spherical object, and that bone there, that pisiform bone, is kind of my marker or my tactile reference point for this kind of picking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that pisiform bone and I'm either going to rest it on the what I mean is touch. I don't mean heavy pressure into the guitar. I'm either going to put it in contact with the bridge, or I'm going to put it in contact with the lower strings, depending on if I need damping or not. And with the same movement pattern here, you were very supinated. All I'm going to do is pronate a little bit more so that the pisiform bone is in contact. My thumb and my index finger are in almost exactly the same position. I'm going to take these fingers off the body of the guitar, and with the same action that produced a pure upstroke escape here, when I'm in this position here, that same wrist action, the downstroke, pronation, extension, and ulnar deviation gets me out on that side, and the upstroke, supination, and radial flexion brings me back out on the other side. And we can see that that's escaping on both sides. Now, if I find this position just right, then I can always transition. You could transition back to your upstroke escape form just by getting your fingers back in contact with your pickguard again, if that's something you prefer. Or you don't necessarily need the same degree of supination you've been using. You can get a very acceptable pure upstroke escape just from supinating just a little bit, so that the arc biases towards an upstroke escape. Okay, in the same way that if I pronate more and I bring the kind of it's called the thenar eminence, this area of my my thumb here, this meaty part here where the muscles of my thumb are, if I bring that down in contact with the strings more, but I keep that same movement pattern of rotation and reverse dart thrower, now it's pure downstroke escape. So the same movement pattern will work for upstroke escape, downstroke escape, or double escape. And this, I kind of think of it as, to me, it feels a little bit like turning a screwdriver. I don't know if anybody else operates a screwdriver the same way that I do. But it feels like turning a screwdriver for me. And this pisiform bone here, that's almost like a fulcrum point or a turning point at which I maintain a reference for everything. So there's no contact with any part of the palm except for right here, this pisiform bone, either on the lower strings, the strings lower than the one I'm playing, or on the bridge, depending on if I need or want tapping. Okay, and this works extremely well for cross-picking, as long as I'm able to maintain that somewhat neutral position. Okay, and we can see that those movements are clearly curved and clearly escaping on both sides. In front. Like that, okay? Obviously when I slow down, it doesn't quite look the same way, but it's the same movement. Okay, and that for doing this movement, I prefer a smaller pick on an electric guitar with more of a point, something like a Jazz 3, but it's not super pick sensitive to me. I think you're using the yellow Tortex with the Jazz 3 point, I'm not sure. Maybe it's a yellow flow, but the same movement works fine here. I just need to judge my positioning a little bit differently. And again, very clear double escape there. And you can hear that it's got quite a powerful and heavy attack. And this is kind of a feature of this type of cross-picking. It's got a very powerful attack, very percussive, and I can't dial that out. I've never been able to. It's a feature, it's just the way it works. Okay, so again, pisiform bone here on the bridge or on the lower strings, and that same movement pattern. I keep my fingers curled just so that it's a quicker transition back to hybrid picking. But just keeping them out of the way of the strings is really the only goal here. Okay, so your position here, which is like that, quite supinated, with that same movement. Lift those fingers up and keep that same movement pattern going. And I have double escape. Okay, that's an electric guitar. Your first clips were posted on acoustic guitar. So I have an acoustic guitar. Please forgive the rather pretentious looking bandana at the headstock. It's there for a reason, but it's not just a fashion statement, but it looks a little bit silly. I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay, so I'm going to place the pisiform bone here either on the lower strings if I want damping, or on the bridge, and keeping my fingers out of contact with those strings, so I'm much more neutral. I'm not so supinated, I'm not so pronated. I'm going to keep that same movement pattern going and pivot off that pisiform bone. And you can see it gets out on both sides. And it's very loud and very powerful, and it works for all of your kind of movement patterns as well. So if you're doing your kind of alternate picking, everybody hurts type pattern, or forward rolls, or whatever it is, or descending rolls, it works just fine. Okay, but dynamically, it might be a little bit strong for some tastes, which is ultimately the reason why I kind of abandoned, well, I wouldn't say abandoned, but moved on from this form as kind of my primary way of doing things. On acoustic guitar, I'm not so fond of the smaller, heavier pick. I think this works fine, but tonally, it just not quite what I would prefer. I would prefer the lighter pick for this. And the important thing here is that you're not going to let the string determine the arc of your picking. You are going to pick right through that string. So what I'm not doing is hitting the string and letting the string deflect me or deviate my path in any way. So I'm going to maintain that power and take that arc that is described by the muscles of my wrist. And you might find that that results in quite a firm attack. So the a softer pick or something like that can help with that. Again, for my tastes, it's a little bit heavy, a little bit maybe too powerful. So kind of one of the big benefits of the kind of Molly Tuttle type form, I think, is that it's not quite as extreme as that. Or very, very similar to the kind of 902 movement as well. Those patterns don't sound quite the same as which is, you know, very, very loud and powerful, and I need to maintain that dynamic to ensure that I'm keeping an effective arc. Whereas with the 902, or the kind of molly-tuttle thing, it's not quite as heavy. I feel like it has a little bit more room for a lower dynamic. In addition to, you know, also just sounding good and being very useful with other things. So it's a really great movement, this this rotation and reverse dart thrower blend. It's really powerful. I've done an awful lot with it. I've gotten very far with it. Very, very efficient, will escape on both sides. And that's just kind of showing it to you from that angle there. From the front, looks pretty straight on, looks almost like a side-to-side movement, but there really is quite a pronounced rotation, which is taking me out of the plane of the strings. Okay. If you have any more questions, you know, please let me know. I'll be happy to try to help. I think it will work for you. I think it's definitely going to be, you know, compatible with your form. And, you know, if it's just the occasional passage here and there, you should be able to just, you know, tilt into this and then tilt back out again for your comfortable form. So it should be something you can integrate, you know, quite naturally into your playing. But what I would really stress the importance of you know, making sure that you are determining the arc rather than the string determining where you're going to go. You have to follow the arc that's determined by the movement path and not let the string deviate you. So that's why you end up with this really powerful attack. Okay. Okay, I'll leave it there. I hope that helps. And yeah, let me know how you get on.